Okay, here we go. Nice and quiet.
Sound speeds, camera rolling.
Holding for sound.
Last looks. Calling for last looks.
And set and action.
I need to swap batteries.
You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I'm Ark Marcel. I'm the founding host of the podcast. I've been crewing up on sets for over 10 years. I've made dozens of films, shorts, and features as either a producer or a director. And I'm now just finishing up my first feature film as a writer-director of The Alternate, which we have some cool news about. Stay tuned.
I am Liz Manischel. I am a writer, director, producer with 2 features under my belt. Note to self, I'm going to look up the origin of the phrase under my belt. Back to scene. I am a former film critic, current distribution consultant, who used to manage Sundance's creative distribution initiative.
This week, we welcome back friends of the show, Brett and Drew Pierce, who were last on the show in the winter of 2019, talking about their film, The Wretched, which had just finished up its festival run and then had secured distribution with IFC Midnight. So it was like already super exciting. But then in the spring, after the pandemic hit, they had massive success in drive-in theaters, grossing over $1 million, which, I mean, isn't a lot now sounding or like before, but during the pandemic, like that's a lot of money to gross, especially for like a small little indie movie. And since then, they've been pitching on projects and trying to get their next film together. And I thought it'd be really great to chat with them about what has happened to their careers after they had just about as much success as like a small indie horror film could hope for, you know. Pretty much. I mean, they played all the big genre film festivals. Like, you know, it's crazy. Anyways, we are going to get right into our conversation with Brett and Drew, but don't go away because we've got another installment of Get Shorty featuring the Texas short, The Parable of Amos and Moses. And Liz and I read a listener letter, and I have a big announcement about The Alternate.
Big announcement!
Yeah, so without more fumbling over words, here's our talk with Brett and Drew.
Context for listeners who are just joining us, this is our second interview with Brett and Drew from The Wretched.
Yeah, you guys should check out the episode with Brett and Drew from like winter of 2019 where we talk about The Wretched. Actually, that's not true. It was released in 2020 right when the movie came out because we held on to it for a long time. And then we released it when the movie came out, which I don't remember if that was March or April, but whenever your film was released was when your episode came out. So people
came out May 1st, so probably something kind of close to that.
Yeah. So go back to May 2020 or so in the Making Movies is Hard archives. You can find the first episode. So you can get caught up. So you won't have any, like, you know, you'll have all the context for this conversation. But yeah, welcome back, guys. Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
So just for people who didn't hear about this the first time, give us the elevator pitch for The Wretched.
A 1,000-year-old witch is hiding under the skin of a young mother living next door to a teenage boy that discovers that she's not who she says she is. I haven't had to do that in so long. Yeah, that was like my I was like, I gotta think about this. I haven't had
Nice pull.
Yeah.
What festival did you premiere at? And yes, what festival did you premiere at?
We premiered at Fantasia Fest
2019,
which is pretty awesome because, you know, we had the hopes and dreams of getting into like one of the top tier big festivals, you know, like the Toronto or the Sundance and all that stuff, South by Southwest. But Fantasia ended up turning out great because they have that Frontiers Market that runs simultaneous to the festival. So press actually shows up to it. So like CAA was there and they contacted us after our screening because we had a great screening, and the Variety was there, so they like reviewed us from the screen. So like even though it wasn't like a top tier festival, we didn't really understand, but there was so much
I think it's
press and industry there.
When it comes to genre, Fantasia is top tier. You know, it's kind of
right.
the best one you can go to. You know, and most people have all heard of Sundance and Toronto, but if you kind of go outside, you guys know Fantasia is kind of in that next line.
Yeah.
Just going down the list of their festival, hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
Watching them participate. Yeah. Terrified. You know that, right?
Yeah.
We tried so hard to get in Fantasia, and we got really close, and we just didn't make it. And anyways, but you know what? We have a great premiere. I don't care. It's awesome. So I'm gonna kind of, change this question a little bit. So how many festivals did you play total, and what were some of like the top other festivals you played in addition to Fantasia?
I think we played like 40 or 50 festivals, but
Wow.
the best ones that we played Fright Fest in the UK over in London. That's always like one of those just fantastic horror film festivals. We also played Scream Fest in LA, another horror festival that's a lot of fun.
Toronto After Dark.
Oh, Toronto After Dark, which is a great horror film festival. And probably actually, weirdly enough, one of the ones we enjoyed the absolute most that not a lot of people know of, it's called the Hardline Film Festival. And it's in Regensburg, Germany.
Regensburg.
And it was
it's a
like
small, old
yeah.
German town. Everything's, cobblestone. And
Yeah.
it was awesome. We're in this little French hotel hanging out with like 15 other filmmakers eating free, food.
Yeah, and they show your movie in this
all weekend.
little theater that's really cute, but like behind the screen is a full bar. So and it goes out into a beer garden. So it's very German and fun.
So if the movie's no good, you just kind of pop behind the screen and start drinking.
Yeah.
Usually with the filmmakers. They're like, what are you doing here?
So it was great.
But that's the whole reason we make movies, is just to do the festival run.
At what point did your distribution deal come into focus? With whom? And we have a question here that I don't even know if we can ask, but can you talk about any details of distribution with regard to like an advance / minimum guarantee, what rights they took, things like that?
Yeah, we can a little bit. The route for us that happened is immediately at Fantasia, we attracted CAA as a domestic sales rep, and they shortly came on board after we worked out the deal with them to sell the movie domestically. At the same time, and shortly thereafter, a different company called AMP, which is a really great company, came on as our international sales rep for every other territory. But it was pretty much, Fantasia was in July of 2019. By early October, we had sold to IFC Midnight for domestic through CAA. And we had also started selling to, I think, we had already sold to a bunch of foreign territories through AMP. So like quite a few had already started kind of getting taken up. The MG we got an MG, which was cool. It's one of those things where you're like, the MGs never are what you want them to be.
Yeah, it's still close to our budget.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ever really make sense. I mean, you almost think like, why even get an MG? Because you have to repay it anyway.
Yeah.
So like, if you ever ended up with just your MG, it would be a horrible disaster anyway. So it's kind of it seems almost kind of
but
a mute point.
Between all that, because the movie did so well when it got released on, in theaters, but also on, in drive-ins and on video on demand and all the other outlets that they do, we were able to, pay off our MG, and the movies continued to make money, which is a rarity. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, to frame things a little bit for your listeners, is we made a movie without any real substantial names, like an indie movie, for around $2 million, just to kind of give people context, and which is really dangerous territory to be treading in. And I think we felt really good about the movie. It's a high concept horror movie that we felt had a really cool hook to it, and was kind of like an easy sort of like high concept idea that people might go see, but without stars, you're trying to just get as many things to kind of make it an easy decision. And then, not to jump ahead, but I don't think anybody was like, everybody was nervous about the film, even though everybody really liked it. But we plotted our release for the May 1st, when Black Widow was originally supposed to be released, and it was going right into the pandemic. And we were going to be released in like 12 to 15 theaters was sort of the distribution deal we set up. And the pandemic hit, and we thought we just weren't going to come out. But then IFC made the most miraculous, great sort of pivot to releasing in drive-ins. Like, it was a miracle for us, because we still thought at that point, we're like, we'll come out in like 10 drive-ins and it'll be fun. At least we get to come out. The pandemic sucks, but at least our movie didn't get shelved.
We thought it was going to be like a week
just
or
go
two,
straight to
there, and we, maybe the movie would make like 50 grand if we were lucky. So.
I think we made a movie that was, because it's a witch movie and because it's a very simple concept to grasp, basically like The Witch Next Door, which is literally the title in Germany. I think it was like the easy, great drive-in movie for people to eat, like an easy choice. And we kind of intentionally named it, we called it The Wretched. We actually changed the title going in because we felt like it was a little closer to like people might, it's kind of in the vein of like The Insidious, The Conjuring, that kind of type movie. And I think it was an easy choice for people. And then I think people liked the movie. They kind of, the people got sucked in and word of mouth just spread. So we ended up each week, we sold out every show. Like we were just packed to the brim. Because also drive-ins became a thing. And it ended up running for 6 weeks as the #1 movie in America because all the, $200 million movies were wiped out. And it ended up tying, it's the most ridiculous Jeopardy question ever, but it ended up tying like The Sixth Sense and Avatar for
Black Panther
Panther for running 6 weeks straight. So it's absurd. They made like $2 billion in the time that I think our movie made a couple million in the US box office. But it was just a cool experience, it kept blowing up. After a couple of weeks, we were doing press every day through IFC, and the questions started to turn from like, after about the 3-4 week mark, to questions about the success, how drive-ins are back and how we're the biggest success. From being like this story about like, what was the concept of your movie to like, we were like the big drive-in story.
Well, it was just the big bump that we saw in like and it was because as an independent filmmaker, it's like, you never like to talk about numbers and think about, but IFC is really great about every week sharing, like, this is how it's doing on VOD and this is how it's doing in theaters. And then we noticed that 3 weeks in, Good Morning America contacted our agents and managers and just said, hey, there's this drive-in story we're doing. We want to talk about your movie because it's #1 and drive-ins are back. So they did this little short blip of a story. And it was about drive-ins in general. We were just kind of like part of it. And you see us for maybe 5 or 6 seconds, like saying, oh, it's so crazy, our movie's doing well. And we noticed when we got like the stats from IFC, like the next week, it was just like a huge reach, completely different. It kind of like made us realize in our heads, we're like, what the real thing is about independent movies is we don't have the advertising reach that studios have, because this was just a blip on Good Morning America and it resulted in this.
We had this 1 week, I think it was right before Good Morning America. It's like week 2 or 3. We had a week where we got reviewed by the LA Times, the New York Times, the Variety, and like one of the other Hollywood Reporter or something, and everybody gave us like just glowing reviews. And that, I think that kind of escalated it and then got us off the Morning America thing. So. But it was just a crazy wild ride because the world was ending.
At the same time the world was ending. It's just weirdly enough, people were watching a baby eating witch movie at the drive-in.
So I guess we can safely say that you got a return on your investment for your investors and everything through this.
Well, I think we're getting there. The other trick is with independent movies, the first time, you just got to think, the first time you
quarterly,
sales are quarterly. So the first time you get really paid something to like pay back your investors or whatever is nearing 6 to 8 months after the movie comes out. And that's kind of like catching up with, I would say in our case, that was just the MGs we were getting from countries and IFC. And then we had to wait another 3 months before, the next quarter where you start seeing what the movie made in theaters or on VOD, you start getting part of that. So it's just like delayed response. It's like you're kind of not really getting, you got to think like you're not really getting anything significant for at least a year after your release.
The short answer is that I think the miracle is that our investors will probably get their money back and make a decent return.
And make some money too.
It'll take a little while because a lot of your sales are to like streaming, right? In streaming, they usually buy like a 2-3 year deal and you get it quarterly divided up. So even if you sell for a couple $1 million, every quarter you're only getting a couple $100,000.
Yeah. Like we're sold to a bunch of streamers, but we it's not like IFC get that amount flat. They get like, like one of the places we're sold to, they sold it for X amount of money, and we're being paid it broken up over 3 years, like every 3 months. So it's like just very, nothing's ever like, here's half your budget all in one clip. It's like, well, here's a little bit, and here's a good chunk more, and here's a lot more. Oh, here's a little bit more. It's just like,
I mean,
that's how it's adding up.
forever we were digging around trying to troll through and find any information about deals and how to make deals and what is a good deal. I mean, never any. And I know you've done a lot of work on that, Liz, trying to provide that information. I've definitely dug into all your stuff. But it's tricky because when you do make deals, all these people, your sales agents, your distributors, there's all sorts of expenses and things that you never totally know about. And yes, we had lawyers and people, trying to push on our behalf on all these things. But still, there's things that you get taxed on or expenses that you never foresee. And you're always the last to get your money, basically. As the filmmaker, you just watch cut on cut on cut on cut, and then you're the last little portion where you're like, oh, good, a couple cents for us. Yeah. And so you really like it, in terms of, we went through this with our first film, so we learned a lot through that, not knowing a thing at all at that point. And you realize that you probably have to make somewhere around 4 times your budget back, like gross everything, to get your budget to break even because of all the hands and the things that are in it.
If you have sales agents, and it's like
if you have all these things,
if you have a distributor, if you have sales agents, if you have expenses against the movie, if you have an MG, if you have all of these lists of things, there's so many things that come out. And then even in our case, we made a healthy return at drive-ins, except for the fact that not only we were like the top billing on most of the drive-ins, we still have to split all of those, not only with half of it goes to the other movies that most people weren't going to see because we were like the top billing because we were the number 1 movie in America.
Because everything's double feature.
But we also have to, half of that is going to go to the drive-in, people that run the drive-ins. And then after that, half of that's going to go to like basically like IFC, like half of a half of a half, like that's how these things work is the truth. If I looked at the full on gross of everything the Wretched made, I'd just be like jumping around as like before I learned about how, profits.
We were kind of savvy about how this works. Like we got good, what are considered good and fair deals, and it's still like, it's a long process and it's a long shot. Like we had to have a movie come out in a pandemic, be the number 1 movie, happen to have all the big movies pulled away, be number 1. So it gets more, more people go see it in the theater, and more people rent it on VOD, and more people buy the Blu-ray later, and like even things like, there's, our movie was going to be on this streaming service, but there was a thing in the deal that if it made so much in a movie theater, they had to pay more for it, and we got that because the movie did better than they expected. We had to get all those things, but it's still like, it's still a slog.
And we don't need to be grim about this state of indie filmmaking, but there obviously is like a brutal truth. I don't know if, having known dozens of filmmakers now and talking to everybody at festivals, I don't know if there's a single story that I've ever heard in the last 5 years where an indie movie, like an actual indie movie with like not production behind it, makes sense financially. Like even the ones that are barely successful. Yeah. And that's like the miracle, which I think ours is going to end up probably being one of those. But I think just financially, it's not necessarily, I think we're all playing the long game. It's for us, we make movies so we can hopefully make more movies. That's like the goal.
Just while we're on this topic, was anything not worth the price of admission? Like, I would assume that CAA was worth the price of admission because they got you to IFC, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, but and it sounds like you think highly of AMP. So it's what lawyers' fees, like, is there something that you would have done differently?
I think we feel good about pretty much all of our decisions. I can't think of anything offhand. IFC was an amazing partner. They let us collaborate. I'm a poster designer is one of my side jobs and storyboard artists, so they let us like make the poster.
Yeah. Crazy enough, our experience with IFC and AMP have been wonderful.
AMP has been amazing.
Yeah, they've been really great.
They've been amazing partners. I mean, CAA doesn't have a whole lot to do, is the truth. They set up the deal, though. They collect the check.
And to CAA's credit, there was an agent there that gave us really good advice.
She did.
When we had a hard choice between a couple of different distributors that wanted it, and she actually pointed us towards something. Strangely enough, that was less lucrative but more kind of beneficial
I
to
think
us.
we found the one
So,
CIA agent there that has a heart. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think she actually
I have a lot of respect
good
for
by
it. But
us.
yeah, we've had, it was such a weird experience because we feel like we kind of did everything right. And we also had a mix of, we made a movie people liked. We also got really lucky in all these different ways too. So it just floors us. Like we're happy. Like we're really happy with how things happen because it has afforded a lot of opportunities you never had before in our lives.
For us, the game was, and the game was basically like, how can we punch our way up to trying to get like a studio? Because in our view, like there's sort of like two routes. There's the like Duplass brothers method of making really low budget movies, which we've done a bunch of, like, and try and make that sustainable. Like how low can you make it? But I feel like over time, budgets have gotten squashed more and more. So it turns into the like, let me get 8 of my friends and let's figure out a way to shoot this movie creatively. And for us, we kind of were at this point where we're like, okay, we could do that and come up with a perfect like found footage, something horror movie, or like a really indie sort of one location thing. Or we can try and punch our way up and make something look glossy and pretty like the Spielberg and Hitchcockian movies we love and try and get that next step. So like for us, I mean, I wouldn't never say this out loud, but to our investors and stuff. But the goal is for us to make something that we're proud of that we can send to other creatives in LA and get representation by. And in that respect, we got managers, we've got agents that we love, we've gotten to meet everybody in town that has anything to do with a horror project ever. We've kind of gotten all of the doors opened. It's really just kind of like, can you guys convert? And do you guys want to make?
Can you not be indie? Can you be studio?
Yeah, can you be
like
studio? So we're kind of we spent the last like year all through the pandemic. It's just been us. A lot of it's been us in the room on Zooms pitching to executives and doing generals. The whole water bottle tour just online.
Yeah.
But learning how to do, I mean, we're pitching 2 TV shows now. We did a whole run of a feature idea that we're in love with, but it's a little bit of a big swing because it's like probably like a $15 million sort of horror movie that we're obsessed with. And we've pitched on a ton of IP. I mean, there's a lot of major, some of them we didn't really want to pitch on, but a lot of reboots, a lot of, famous franchise stuff. I think we might end up writing one of them now. But it's been like a crazy journey, kind of learning that. That's been a huge learning process for us. Because I think in some ways we're kind of, we think of ourselves as directors first and writers second, and like producers are somewhere like 8 notches down there, but we kind of do all that stuff, and we've really had to embrace the writing side. And
it's been a year of meeting people and writing and learning how to pitch TV, which we never did before, but also learning to make friends with executives and like understand how their system works and what they're looking for. So it's like it's a different game. It's like I'm not just trying to make something that I think is cool anymore. I'm trying to make something I think is cool that I can somehow convince 25 other people that is a cool,
and how to make them feel like collaborative in a meeting where you rehearse something to death, and all these things. We've done a lot of making pitch docs and walking, because it's a whole new world right now for pitching, because you're not in the room. So the best way we've found is like making really elaborate pitch documents that we walk them through step by step of the stories, because otherwise they just watch us kind of
bob our heads and tell the whole story. So
which is pretty boring. I mean, even if it's the best movie in the world, somebody telling you a story for 20 minutes, and it gets pretty rough.
So through this last year, like, has it all just been a bunch of pitches that you haven't won, or has there been opportunities that you guys have passed on because you didn't think that they were right for you or whatever?
It's a mix, because part of what it was is we were the Wretched got popular when the pandemic was raging. So everybody wanted to meet with us and talk to us, but everybody was on hold. Like, we don't know when the world's coming back, so we're not committing to any. I mean, they were committing to Marvel movies and Mission Impossible movies. They weren't going to commit to some, like, a movie between $5 and $20 million they might make with us. You know what I'm saying, or something like that. They're not going to commit to that.
Yeah.
So we we were pitching on all these things, meeting everyone around town, reading things that they were sending us that they wanted us to consider to direct when the world opened up again. So it has been a mix of us pitching our own stuff. We passed on directing a couple of things just because we weren't feeling the material,
which has been tough
So,
because
yeah.
there's definitely been a lot of scripts. I mean,
Yeah.
90% of the scripts you read are like garbage, is the truth, But like even when we find something that has like a glimmer of a really cool idea, for us, we're usually at this point where we're like, okay, we just got to rewrite half of it. It's got a great base, but there's these characters are terrible.
But then you're kind of
whole last
into
act is terrible.
you're kind of into pitching territory again, where everybody's already on board with this script, and you got to convince them to let you rewrite the third act.
So we've had a couple studios that are just like, and they're decent budgeted things, like $7 million, like decent projects that would be a step up for us, but with scripts we're just not excited about.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's too hard to make a movie to like make something you don't love.
Yeah.
And also it just doesn't feel like it would earn us much. So we've definitely, sometimes we've had these powwows where we're like, should we bother to commit like a week of our time to like really dig into this script and figure out how to make this awesome? And we've done it a couple of times. And sometimes and most of the time the studio is just like, well, we want to shoot in 2 months, guys. And sometimes the ideas we present them, I think if there's anything that we've sort of gotten good at, it is pitched on so many concepts that we get to high concept ideas, I think, so much quicker and kind of do the goods. And we've definitely learned a lot about how to make things. Pitching is so different from storytelling, like make things sound exciting and emphasize that stuff. But yeah, it's definitely been a struggle because, you can exhaust a lot of time working on other people's projects that we have no control over.
Yeah. So the one thing I would say I advise everybody to do is, you're afforded the opportunity to pitch to a lot of people, a lot of different stuff. It's great. Or pitch on IP, or they offer you scripts to maybe rewrite. Do all that stuff, but also just constantly be writing your own stuff. So you're also like filtering that same chain of, I got something you can just read. So that's because I feel like in the first 3 months, we just got sucked down the hole of just pitching on other things that we didn't know, and it's cool. It's just a lot of work, and it's kind of a big ask to get onto those things that, we quickly shifted after that. Like, let's just write a bunch of stuff
and
get it out
even
there.
the ones that we whipped at, or we pitched on we've even pitched on DC stuff. We pitched on major property stuff. Like, I think they were all not only worthwhile for our experience, like we've learned an insane amount through the pitching process, but we've also developed some relationships with these executives that have come back to us. Some of the big studios that like us. So hopefully when they have an ODA, like an open directing assignment or a script that they can't quite crack, they'll come back to us, they'll keep us in mind.
Yeah.
So it's also partially dating,
speed dating. Yeah. It's like speed dating on Zoom with all these studio executives. And you're trying to get them to kind of like fall in love with you and think you're smart at the same time, so that they come back to you with stuff later.
The thing that makes the most sense for anybody is basically the thing that I think we could probably get greenlit fairly easy right now is something in, a bigger budget from what we were working with before, but something that's double or triple the budget we did before, that's high concept and kind of in the same genre. Those are the things, but we've definitely, and it's just in our nature, we take big swings. That's what we do. We like write towards things we love. So we went after, this guy's a massive comic book fan, and I've been, an artist for my entire life, but I was like a animator at Futurama and storyboard artist for 10 years. So we have taken a couple shots at like comic book properties that we absolutely love, and got our management to put us in contact with the creators and sold them on how much we love their IP project. And then we've been taking those out to producers all over town and attaching producers, and then we take them to all the streamers. That's kind of been the big thing now. If we were being like tactical, that's probably a huge swing for two guys that made like a popular indie movie. Like, we're going to transition into massive TV franchise.
Yeah.
But
we don't care though. It's fun.
We just go after the stuff we love.
The stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
You can't make anything you don't want to make. So it's like, let's try to make the things we want to make. So
yeah.
So like a $4 million horror film or high concept, genre film doesn't excite you guys? This is like,
it does.
We have ideas.
Yeah.
we have several. The truth is, the thing that excited us the most, we kind of started writing and pitching right away, and our management was like, let's take it out as a pitch. And we're actually almost done with the script now. But it was kind of a big swing. It's like a 15
But we actually got
to $20 million movie.
we actually got really close with it.
We got
That was
so
the thing.
close.
We got
so
like
many studios
razor close with something. So it was,
basically we just decided like we should just write this thing because it's actually, the truth is what we've realized with features and stuff in general, I think it makes more sense to never pitch them, right? Unless you're like J.J. Abrams and you can just walk in the door and be like, I got an idea.
Yeah.
But if you're not a major player, it's actually better to just write a spec because it's so much work to develop a pitch and you kind of almost rework the story in your brain to pitch it that I think it's actually just as much work to write the entire script over a couple of months and just email it.
Yeah.
because
if you win that pitch, that company, like if they say, yeah, we like the pitch for your movie, write it, we're going to pay you. They own it. So you can't take it to everybody else in town. So we've realized like, we were pitching this and we were kind of like, people really like this and we're getting pretty close. But then we kind of like pulled it back. We said, let's just write it so that like they don't just own it and then maybe it doesn't get made or it just gets stuck with them because we're starting to feel like, it's a little bit of a big swing. So it's a little hard for them to say yes, but they're really close to saying yes. But if we write it and they can just read it and they're like, yep, this is good, somebody might buy it. But then we can take it to more than one place. It's not owned by that person that commissioned it off of a pitch. So.
I'm going to jump in. I think I have a question. You guys, sorry, this is so bad. Okay. We talked to Amber Seeley like 6 months ago, maybe, who directed No Man of God and a lot of amazing things. And I said to her, like, you're on a fast moving train, right? And she's like, no, it feels like I'm a failure. She had no idea. And then No Man of God came out and it's a big splash right now. I think you guys are aware and cognizant of the momentum that you're experiencing right now. I guess what I'm trying to get a sense of is like, do you like, where do the deals happen? Like you say you're very close to something and you're about to do all these different projects, but I don't even know if there's a question here. The question is like, what could go wrong? Because it feels like from the outside that y'all are like in a very ideal position right now.
The only things it's not that anything's necessarily going wrong. It's it's the process it takes to get something made that is, and I don't know if you guys have covered this before, because the first thing that happens is you go to production companies all around town with either your pitch for a TV show or a movie or a script that you wrote. You have to get on Zooms, convince those people at the production company to make your movie. And it'll be good production companies. And what you're aiming for is all these production companies have first look deals with the studio. So already you're pitching to a low to mid-level exec who then has to hear your pitch and then has to go to the high tier exec, the person that owns the company or the top two people. They have to get convinced. That usually entails you being on another Zoom, convincing them. And then if they all decide, and that's pretty big ask, and we've gotten through that portion of it, then they go, cool, we like this. We'll walk it into the studio on our first look deal. We'll just say with Netflix or Paramount or whatever. So then you go there and then you're before you even go there, you're revising the pitch and changing everything to make the production company happy, to make you happy. You're just trying to make it better and make it as good as possible for where you're taking it to. You take it in there and talk to a mid-level or low exec there at the studio. They gotta like it, and they gotta go to their boss and convince them, like, you should at least hear this. I think it's good, and if you get them. And then you're finally pitching to like the person that has to say yes. Well, it's like 7 or 8 people that have to say yes. And then you have to cross over that finish line. So
in our one sort of,
it's just, we're in the midst of a bunch of different things, but there's so many layers to get something made that like the real answer that Drew and I have realized, and we had a friend who's a very successful screenwriter, and he's right, because he just said as many irons in the fire at the same time, because
you never know which one's
going to go.
Shooting or it's like a complete yes.
So
we have a ton of irons in the fire right now. We're just kind of shooting everywhere.
Yeah.
figure out that next thing. But there's
Yeah.
like 5 or 6 things that we love,
Yeah.
We're like, this could happen,
Yeah. I mean, there's one here's the things. We worked for a whole year with a lot of close stuff and maybes and kind of yeses, but then not yeses. And there's finally one now that seems like it's, and I don't even want to jinx it. It's like 98% there, but that 2% could still mess it up right now. So yeah.
I want to hear more about the process of you talking about these comic book properties that you're like going to pitch the creators on, getting their sign off, and then taking it to production companies and taking it to streamers or whatever. Like, talk to us about what that is and how that works, and how's that different than pitching to a studio.
It was the process I just described. It was like the exact same thing, except having to convince the creators and the rights holders first to give it over to us. I mean, really the process is something I didn't realize, which is, as soon as you get decent managers or agents, if you this is just something that we realized is Drew and I were first getting all these meetings with people at different production companies, and they're always like, do you like any comic books? Do you like any books? And we kept on those are like writing down names of stuff. And we're like, oh, and then we've noticed that a lot of them would go get the rights to those and then come back to us and be like, hey guys, that comic you said you liked, well, we got the rights. Do you want to pitch on an idea for it? And we're like, why are we telling these people what we like? They're just kind of,
So we just approached the creators and kind of came up with what would our dream version season be of their comic book.
Yeah.
And there are things that are popular that we love, and we just kind of pitched them on our love of the comic. I'm an artist. The artists were on there too, so we got to talk to the artists how much we love it and kind of just convince them on our vision.
And you realize
that's the best part, because they're the creative people that already love their project.
They're like you. They're a lot of people. They're like frustrated filmmakers, because a lot of them have gone down the road of trying to get that thing made into a movie or a TV show.
To create this engine and marketing for their comic books. So they understand what you're kind of doing.
Well, they've also seen their creation baby, somebody try to turn it into something it's not meant to be, and it doesn't happen, and that they get really frustrated by that. So when us as creatives come to them who genuinely love the stuff they do, and of course there has to be changes that make something work as a movie or a TV show, when they see that you're genuinely in love with it and you understand it and you're trying to hold the spirit of what they love about it in there, they said yes to us. And we were kind of surprised, because they had other people that were interested, but it's because they were like, oh, you guys understand what I love about this. And I've seen other people try to take it and turn it into a bad teen drama, and that's not what I wrote, or something like that. That's usually kind of how they feel. So
and we don't have a ton of time, but I want to go back slightly for people who didn't catch our first episode. You said that this feature, which is not your first feature, but your feature was $2 million. And I think getting that budget was the firing gun for the rest of your career. I'm just going to make that assumption. It really seems like things took off because you had that budget that allowed you to make the film with the resources that needed. Can you talk a little bit about leveling up in that way? Requesting what you need to make a film.
Yeah, I think obviously was a huge stepping stone, and there's a million stepping stones is the truth, because we've made a bunch of other really low budget movies people will never see for $4,000 with our friends, even our friends that are working on massive features in LA now. And we made a $200,000 zombie comedy.
That's our first real movie.
Just all these things that sort of gave people enough credibility in us, right? But also Brett and I, this is the only reason we were able to get the $2 million. Brett and I, we spent 10 years recovering from being broke from our first $200,000 feature, working in the industry. I had a good job. I was working as a storyboard artist for, commercials and features and stuff. And Brett has been working as a producer in reality TV and bouncing around. But we've learned a ton about production and all that stuff. Basically, I've just gotten to practice being a director on other people's things. So all of that experience and all of those, I think, gave confidence to the investors. Basically, I think we might have talked about this the first time around, but we basically spent a couple of years trying to raise money for this film. And everybody told us it was a $4 to $5 million feature. It is a really ambitious horror movie with creature effects, a cave set, like really ambitious production
Kids
design,
and stuff.
kids,
Yeah.
animals, like the whole gamut, deer. But we, it's a script and a story we believed in, and we just kept sort of pushing. And ultimately, we tried it with a couple of production companies that kept faltering. Like they even tried to attach like Megan Fox, who didn't fit the right, but it wasn't the vibe, and we didn't want to even go out to her, and good thing she turned it down. But and I like Megan Fox, who just didn't fit this movie. But we basically were like, okay, what can we do? How can we do this the way we've always done it? Let's go find private investment. So we just our dad was an effects artist on the original Evil Dead, so we've heard the lore of Evil Dead a million times. He's taking my son for a swimming class right now. That's his job now. But essentially, they just went to rich people. They went and screened their short films and stuff to dentists and lawyers and doctors when they were like indie filmmakers, and said, "Hey, here's we want to make this movie." And we basically, that's how we got our money for Deadheads, and that's how for our first feature. And for this, we basically, took swings at like the biggest, sort of the wealthiest people we know, right? I mean, it wasn't like film financiers, people just that have a ton of, excess money and would be interested in the film world, and pitched several, and basically put together a really elaborate pitch doc that looks like beautiful, that walks you through the characters, the story, all the sort of creative elements. We also put together like a document that's all the legal stuff, a separate one that's sort of about the risk of investment and comps, and trying to not be lofty about the comps, like, oh, the Blair Witch Project made $1 billion, so you will, you try and give the best comps you can and all that. But we basically made all this stuff, and we made like a proof of concept trailer, and had the finished script. But we also I was working at the Henson shop. We showed them the Henson shop while I was there. I showed them Charlie Chaplin's footsteps and got them excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was courting people the same people for a year to try to make it happen. So
they believed in us. To their credit, they really, and I don't think it was. I think it's partially the idea of we want to make a return on investment, but I think it's also that we convinced them on us. You have to be a salesman. There's the days of being the lowly quiet filmmaker are gone. You have to be like a hype for yourself.
I mean, and the thing was, they saw how devoted we were through the whole process. So there was never even when Drew and I we flew out of state to go kind of get the contract signed where they were going to give us the money, and right before he signed it, he just said I believe in you guys, and I know this is your dream, and I know that he'd already seen us been fighting for this for 2 years, and he understood our whole backstory, that he was he just felt confident about it, and that was more what it was than anything, was selling them. I mean,
and it's
you
still,
want to make it technical, but it was passion,
and it's still a miracle.
So,
and every time we get any small payment, we breathe a sigh of relief, that they're probably going to get their money back and make a little bit of money, which is cool. But it was a miracle. I mean, it is a miracle. It was really doing all the work and having all the stuff, but also lucky, you know.
So my big question is now that you have all this heat behind you with a super successful movie that made all this money, all these, big, not wonderful stats, you have awesome managers and agents and all this stuff. Why don't you just do the same thing again? Package your own project, go out to investors and kind of do it on your own and not rely on, going to all these pitches and stuff.
The honest truth is we're doing that at the same time we're doing all of this.
So we're doing all the pitch stuff, but we also have we also have one project that we want to just go shoot, and given it's a bigger budget from our original, but we think we can put it together. But that's, we're trying to figure out that, but we're also doing all these other things.
Yeah, and that's just from the angle of have as many irons in the fire as possible, because we love all this studio stuff and we're going to try to take advantage of every avenue. But we also are we know how to do this, so that's an avenue too. So let's pursue that one at the same time, because
that's
better chances that something.
That's
happens.
why we cloned ourselves. Yeah, it's just too much work. I loved your guys' episode, by the way, the other day, talking about parenthood, and congratulations, by the way, Ulrich.
Oh, thank you.
The best.
Yeah.
I was a new dad, Liz. I was a new dad going into my movie, The Wretched. Basically, I had a 1-year-old and
oh wow,
new house. and a full-time job at the time, and I was trying to make a movie. So I was like feeling the weight of the world. I think I destroyed my health going through that whole process. We put my baby in the movie. He gets murdered by a witch. It's great.
Oh, awesome. That's your baby. Amazing.
I have another one. I have two now. But the whole, I mean, honestly, the whole thing you guys talking about that like resonated with me talking about parenthood, Liz, and how much of a struggle it is, and how, I mean, it was just great. So,
well, I'm a month in, so I'm just like trying to figure it all out here, you know.
Yeah,
trying to get sleep where I can.
Yeah.
Liz, I have another question. Unless you have a question first.
No, I think you do yours, and then let's go to final five. Because I have to pick up my kid at 4.
So the last big question, and like I think what a lot of people are wondering is like, you know, you've had a year of pitching, a year of almost yeses, and a year of like irons in the fire. But what have you guys been doing to pay the bills in this time? Have you guys gone back to your day jobs, to freelance jobs, or is there another way that you're able to provide for yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit side gig stuff before the pandemic that we were surviving off of. Like we shot a commercial right before the pandemic hit.
Oh, nice.
Strangely enough, we're finishing it right now because it shut down midway. So
they closed the company down and they rebranded it. So now we're changing all the logos and stuff. And
doing the final post on that.
But like, you know, unemployment for this guy.
Unemployment for me. And this guy was also like still doing storyboard work and poster work.
Oh, wow.
First of this when it came up. So it's like, you know, I mean, in a weird way, it's great. We're busy in all the best ways possible, but it's still, you know, like, man, making movies is just a big hustle. So,
it is to the point where we're like, we definitely want to get a gig, you know, and actually get paid to do this since we've worked on stuff like for free for a year. Essentially.
Yeah. That's the one thing you realize, like after you get some attention, you're in the pipeline for a year of free work to land something that is, it's essentially what it is, you know, which is a good place to be, but you just got to go like, I got a year of at least pitching and talking to these people, meeting everybody and getting the right thing down the pipeline before, you know, I get to do it.
And I'm fortunate. I mean, I'm not proud. Like if I have to, I'll go back and do some storyboards. I mean, I was like a pro storyboard artist forever. I can always jump in for a couple of weeks and do storyboards for a couple of weeks and get back, you know, that's just how it's got to be, you know, you got to survive.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot to look forward to. If I have the most success I could possibly imagine, I have a lot of work ahead of me to hopefully be in the position you guys are in a year from when my movie, you know, it comes out eventually, whenever that's going to be.
Man, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, that's cool,
it's like
man.
Thanks.
Right?
September 11th. It's going to be at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, midnight screening.
We'll come see it.
I hope you guys can be there. It's going to be really exciting. That's going to be the first time anyone sees it, you know, publicly. It's probably the first time it'll be screened in its entirety for anyone besides me, because we're going to finish it like 2 weeks before. So,
cool.
Crazy.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
All right, Liz, take us in.
All right. What's the first film you ever made, and how do you feel about it now?
Oh,
Dead Undead?
Or wait, you already answered these questions, right? So what's the second film you ever made, and how do you feel about it now?
It's The Wretched. I guess I like it better now than when we finished it. That's a weird thing to say, but it never felt like it was finished, it's never good enough when you finish it. But like a year later, you kind of start to see like, oh, this works pretty good, you know? So I guess that's how I feel about it now. I'm like, I feel good about it. I have some distance away from it. So.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it. I mean, Brett knows every day, all I do, I can't shut off my brain. I just criticize it and critique it every day forever. Like, that's just the filmmaking
if it was
process.
Up to him, we'd go reshoot stuff and still change it. So it's on Hulu.
Pull the George Lucas. No, I wouldn't do that. I can't help it. I can't shut off my brain. Just reworking what's the better idea.
Well, I rented it opening weekend. My wife and I watched it. We both really liked it. So great job.
Well, cool.
Awesome film. Anyone who likes horror or creature effects should definitely check it out, because your witch stuff was like, holy shit. That was amazing.
Thanks. And it's not like really dark horror scary stuff. If you ever want to watch it, Liz, it's not. I mean, yes, there is some child murder.
Oh, no, I can handle horror. I can't handle things like Antichrist anymore. I can't handle like existential horror. I can handle creature. I love blood. Okay, I'll stop talking.
So, what's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received? Hopefully, something within the last year, maybe.
This is, I've heard Spielberg. I'm obsessed with Spielberg. I can't help it. I'm obsessed with everything about it. Which is always embarrassing whenever we go to horror film festivals and people just, want to pick your brain about like obscure horror stuff. But he always says, and this is the thing that's rang the most true, and I don't think I understood it when he first talked about it, but he always talks about like when you're creatively, all the ideas and all the things that you want to go towards, just always listen to that, like that whisper, that like the thing that's screaming and telling you what you should do is not necessarily the right thing. Like listen to that whisper and trust that whisper that's deep down, that your intuition. And I think that's the thing that I think we've both learned more than anything is like, and it sounds almost like fool yourself, but like the things that we're the most proud of, we knew were going to work. Like we felt it in our intuition. And like, that's the thing I think we've learned more than anything. And my favorite advice is like, trust that intuition, because it's the best guide. It is so quiet a lot of times though,
Yeah. One I love is I was a kid visiting my dad a long time ago, and he lived in LA when we were little, and he made like special edition DVDs, like he would produce the supplements. So he's hanging out with this old filmmaker named Richard Rush, who directed this movie called The Stuntman. And I was swimming in the pool, and I was like 14, and I was just like, so how do you get into movies? What do you do? And he starts telling me how he went and saw Martin Scorsese's Kundun the night before, and he just goes, Kundun. He's like, beautiful cinematography, really well acted, fantastic production design. He just goes, boring. and he goes, hey kid, biggest crime you can commit is make a movie that's boring. Just don't be boring. I always remember that when I'm like writing or editing. I'm just like, just if I'm like struggling, I'm like, just don't be boring. That's the trick. Don't be boring.
Well, Stuntman's a lot of things. It's definitely not boring.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
What are your
sorry.
No. What are your goals as filmmakers?
I just want to make another movie that I like, that I love, that I want to make. I mean, it's like everyone's always trying to manage careers and figure out, like, the managers and agents are always trying to do that. And I think the hard part for them to come to terms with is Drew and I, the sounds terrible, we're not motivated by money. We're motivated by like, man, I really love this. And that's when like we go hard-heartedly. But sometimes they're like, here's money and something that's kind of like what you like to do. And you're just kind of like, yeah, but it doesn't work. So I can't.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
just keep making movies, find a way to make this like actually sustainable, like permanently sustainable.
But just make things I'm proud of and things I care about, that's really the only goal,
If you guys could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you would give yourselves?
Oh man. I don't know, man. See, I wouldn't want to, because it'd probably dissuade me from making movies.
Yeah, I feel like whenever we get like a message every other week now from like young filmmakers in some random state like Montana or something, and I'll end up on the phone with them for like an hour or something, giving them advice, and I always feel like lackluster halfway through the advice, because I'm like, I don't think any of this is going to help you. I don't want to dissuade you in any way. Really, you should just like, if you're excited about something, go do it.
Yeah,
like that's the thing is like, just follow the fun. Like, that's like it. I feel like all the advice that I could have ever gotten would have just like ruined it. I don't think any of our movies, like the decisions in retrospect, might have worked out in some way or not, but I don't know if they would ever make sense.
I'm like actually glad I was really naive about the whole situation of how movies work, how they're made, the financial implications of them, all that stuff. Because if I was aware of it, it would just look so daunting. And I was just more dumb and passionate. And I would want to stay that way young, because I think if I went back, I'd be like, hey, make sure you get a name actor, and that you make sure you do this. I wouldn't do it.
I think it's just,
that sounds like
just
really
in
hard.
general, it's frustrating. We're at this point where like and I listen to like a ton of podcasts and stuff, but all the discussions are about like, how do you get something made? And like, there's not enough podcasts that are about like, what are your creative decisions? Because it has to be so hard to make things now. It's not, it's not about like lens choices and cinematography and how did you pick these people? It's always like, how did you get the money? Like, it has to be kind of, because it's so hard. That's like the necessity. That's what I wanted to know about too, going in.
I love the follow the fun. I've heard that advice before, and I think it's really good life advice. Last question: is making movies hard?
It's impossible.
Yeah. It's I don't
That's
know,
the
man.
fun of it, though. To be honest, I wouldn't have it any other
Yeah.
way. Like
Yeah.
if it was easy, it would be so boring. It wouldn't sound. It
Yeah.
wouldn't. It's the thrill of the chase. Like I like the fact that like no matter what, even though we feel like we had some success, everything is just another tier. It's like you just got up one tier to another big bad boss that's harder than you ever imagined.
Yeah.
But that's what happens in movies, right? Like you get to the middle act and you're like, oh shit, I wasn't even pursuing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's a completely different goal.
Yeah.
And that's movies, you know.
I,
It's
you know,
always-
as much as it is hard, but I love the challenge that's hard because it gets me all fired up. I love it. I like it when people tell me no because it makes me go like, no, I'm gonna do it. You know, I love it.
That's amazing. Yeah. One of the things I just thought of that I don't normally do this, but like, you know, when I was younger, like I wish someone would have told me earlier, or I had figured out earlier that there was no like magic to this. There was like no secret. There was like no thing or person that will come and save me and make making movies easier. That like, oh, if I just get this one thing, everything will be easier. It's like that never happens. It's always going to be hard. You always have to do it yourself. You always have to grind it out. And I think once you accept that, then you can actually make things a lot easier because
It's why
you
that
just
Mark
know.
Duplass speech about the cavalry isn't coming and everybody
Right.
knows. So the most accurate thing I have ever heard. It's probably the most, the most.
But every time I
One
listen
lesson
to
you
it,
take
there's
away.
still part of me that's just like, yeah, but what if the cavalry comes? You know, like that's
But I mean, you guys are perfect examples because you guys have the cavalry, you have the agents, you have the managers, you have these connections, and look at what you guys are going through. It's the same thing.
Yeah, well, the truth is, my only cavalry is this guy. You know, all that other stuff's
Aw.
great. No, he is. He's the one guy that's like, we're still working to do this together. Not everybody has that. So,
you know what the
You know,
deflating
so,
part is though, because
yeah.
our dad obviously did the effects on Evil Dead or whatever. He was like a old film guy, but he's so nostalgic for like old Hollywood. So whenever we talk about stuff, he's just like, you know, his advice or his like sort of like perception is just like, yeah, but what you need to do is, you know, get a big producer attached and then it all like money. You know, he's so like romantic about Hollywood and the way stuff is produced, and we're so like in the trenches of like, you know, how do we shoot something on pennies? You know?
That's so funny. So last little bit, where should people go if they want to learn more about you? Where can they hunt you down to find out all the details of your careers?
oh man,
Oh man, we were both terrible with the social medias. This guy got so stressed out, like he became like an Instagram junkie and just got off.
it was I was like doing it to promote the movie, and after as soon as like the movie was like done doing it, I was like, I never want to
Done.
do this again. So I just kind of like got off all of it. So I mean, the best way to find anything out about us is just watch our movie on Hulu, The Wretched. You know, it's like the only place to find it.
Yeah, I mean, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can track us down.
Yeah.
You know, we're just not
just
crazy active.
not doing anything on it, which, you know, it's probably to our fault.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
Thank
this is
you.
fantastic. So we haven't recorded our conversation with Brett and Drew yet, so we don't have any like reflection or anything. But yeah, I think Liz has a Get Shorty for us.
I do.
So you make movies, huh?
I produce feature motion pictures.
I got an idea for a movie.
This week on Get Shorty, we have a brand new short film, which was recommended to us from friends of the show, Travis and Madison. And the film is called The Parable of Amos Moses. And we have filmmakers Dylan Varela and Mason Beals, apologies if I mispronounced both those names, on the show to talk about their film. Here they are.
Hello, how's it going? I'm Mason Beals, the writer and star of Amos Moses, or The Parable of Amos Moses.
Yeah, and I'm Dylan Varela. I directed it. First question, why did you make a short versus any other medium?
We weren't going to make a feature, it wasn't going to be a puppet show.
You know, film is our medium of choice, really. Like it's, you know, we both edit and shoot and write and stuff. So the whole thing truly was almost just an exercise. Like let's just make something together.
Yeah.
And
Definitely, because it was definitely the first time that I had somebody else direct something of mine. And Dylan and I worked together, and we used to be friends. Then this project just tore us apart. But yeah, no, it was, like you said, just a good practice of things.
so why this story?
The movie is based off of the song Amos Moses
By Jerry Reed?
Jerry Reed,
Yeah.
and I just liked the sound of it, and I was just on a walk one day, and I just kind of thought of this idea for the script for this really country private investigator. But then finding the meaning within that is like, what's the struggle? And it's like, he's fearful, I think was just like fun.
Yeah.
And I'm also a fearful person, so it was like really pretty, so easy to write.
I don't know, I think it's both our styles where there's enough comedy in it, but like at the end of the day, there's something kind of sweet to it, you know?
Yeah.
It checked all the boxes for, like we said, like this exercise, you know? It was something that we were excited to approach. How did your team come up with the funds?
Ha! Jobs.
Pockets. Yeah.
Deep pockets. Deep daddy pockets is what they call me and him.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, the budget was probably like $2,000 or $3,000 total. I think all of our year, like we both started in, you know, super young making films, and this was like, you know, when you learn how to do literally everything, it's like, I feel like we stretched $1 pretty damn far for this. So, yeah, I was proud of that. Before making the short, what did you think would happen to your career because of it? What did end up happening?
I don't think I thought anything would happen.
Yeah.
It's just like most early filmmakers should go into making things with the expectation that nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Because that's not the reason why you should make things. You should make
Just
things
make 'em.
because you like to. So
Post took a long time because of yours truly. And even by the time it was done, I was like, I was just glad it was finished and like we created it. I cared about like showing other people, but like as far as festivals and stuff, I don't know. I think, and I do think that lied in how long it took me to cut it. Probably like some of the enthusiasm died off. And by the time it was done, it just felt like an accomplishment. You know, just something that we were like proud of, that we created, and it's got some views and some good responses from our moms. Now that it's out in the world, what purpose does it serve? I mean, for me, it's like, you know, my most recent legitimate short film. So when I'm applying for other things, or on my next project when I maybe do want to try and, you know, raise some money, it's something I can point to. You know, it's just it was an exercise, but like I think it turned out well. It looks good. It looks like we know what we're doing, and so yeah, it's like something I can just use in the future.
I like making stuff that's entertaining for people just to watch if they want to. Like that's kind of a big thing for me. Like I have a couple of like fans of this short film. They're like, I watch it every now and then. I'm like, oh cool, you know, that's great. You know, like good for
it's
you.
a good feeling. Like I mean, you spend all that time creating something, and for it to actually have like multiple uses is a nice feeling.
Absolutely.
Sure. Would you do anything differently story-wise now that the short is done and released?
I don't know. It's like, what I appreciate about it is that it feels like a short film. Like it has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
There's a lot of short films that are just ambiguous and artsy, and that's fine. But like this one, I do like that it has a wrap up. So it almost feels like you can't really do anything too differently in a way.
I think this is us just searching for like what more we could have added, and at the end of the day, we had to cut out like 7 minutes. Planning for a 13-minute cut from the beginning, because it was kind of odd cutting around so much, especially when you only have a small amount of time already. So just being smarter from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being better, smarter, faster, stronger.
So then one bonus question is, why did we use a Beastie Boys song in our short? The reason we used it is because there wasn't a copyright on it. It was a part of something that Wired magazine did in 2004, where there's like a whole album. There's like a Spoon song, a My Morning Jacket song, Beastie Boys. They basically released it for filmmakers, people to remix, reuse. I just thought it was a cool addition, you know, like to actually get a name that you recognize and put it in our short. So yeah, there really wasn't much risk to it. I know when we put it on YouTube, we still did have to like go over that hurdle, but I think it's okay after.
No one cares.
After we explained, nobody really cares.
Who gives a shit?
So yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Ulrich, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this film?
So I really liked the style and tone. I thought it was great. I thought it was shot really well, and it was really beautiful and really cool angles and stuff. I like the goofiness of the story. I mean, you know, any movie where you're going to have a character called the Laramie Brothers who are named Jeremy and Jeremy Laramie. I mean, my God, that is amazing. And
played by Travis. Jeremy's Travis.
Jeremy's Travis, and the other Jeremy is played by a woman. So I thought that was kind of fun that they had like the Laramie Brothers and one was a woman, and it's just like, that's just what it is. And it's like, oh, that's kind of fun. That's different. And, you know, it's just the same old note I give every time. Just wish there was no voiceover. Don't think it was needed. It wasn't, watching it the first time going all the way through, I was like, oh man, there was voiceover throughout the whole thing. It was just voiceover. And then I watched it again and I counted. And it was only like maybe 2 times that the voiceover was there. But it just didn't need to be. I was like, why are we doing this? We don't need a nice little bow wrap up of like how he's feeling or his inner monologue while he's doing things. Like, no, like we don't care. Like, just let us just enjoy the movie and the story unravel. I mean, it's good storytelling as it is. Like, we don't need all this other stuff. So, anyways, that's kind of my thoughts on it. But Liz, what did you think?
A few notes. I agree with you about everything you said. It's really beautiful looking. It's interesting. It's quirky. I'm usually drawn to that type of content. I guess my big picture notes, if we're going to get constructive, which I always get nervous about, but we'll do it regardless, is the character of Amos Moses feels like he's trying to vindicate himself, right? It's like his dad was a private investigator or detective and had a certain reputation, and he goes and he does a more safer trajectory for himself. And I guess I missed that aspect of his drive throughout the short. Like, it wasn't pushing him forward. He felt like he was kind of like loosely floating from scene to scene and not driven by this goal that I thought was planted in the beginning that was ripe for drama. In addition to that, I thought there were some sound issues, especially in the very beginning where there's no backgrounds. And so the tracks were isolated to a degree where it didn't feel like they were in a space, like in a room. And that was very off-putting to me. It took me a while to figure out what it was that made me feel strange about the opening scene. And I was like, oh, it's the sound. I thought they could go a lot farther with the character's goofiness and silliness, and I think Mason did a great job, but I don't think his performance was the strongest part of this short, and I would be curious whether maybe they bring in someone older or they write more into the script about his youth. He just felt actually out of place and looked very young in every single scene.
Yeah, I mean, they called him Junior, but
Right.
it's not really enough. It's because it's like this like little hint of like a bigger story going on, but they don't really, like develop it very much. And I'm not necessarily saying like I need to see the father or anything, but like I guess the big issue, which I didn't mention earlier, is like in the beginning, the woman comes to him and like convinced that he's the one that needs to help her, but like. We don't really know why. Like,
we don't know
why. Like he was a terrible speaker at her school.
And
like,
she
I
was
wouldn't
like
even
disturbed by him in that moment, right? Yeah.
Like I wouldn't ask that guy to like tell me the time, let alone try to find my son. So like it just didn't really make sense. And then like you kind of get, oh, it's like because of his dad that she wants to go to him, but like we don't know anything about the dad and like why the dad is so great and why she would think that. So I think that's sort of the missing link. And like why she wouldn't tell the police about his whereabouts and hanging out with the Laramie brothers, like doesn't make any sense. Like why would she keep that bit of information to herself and only tell a private detective? That is like those big story beats that are needed for the story to happen don't make sense, and it's like that's kind of a problem.
I completely agree. There's the story logic is faulty, but it's saved by style. This film is saved by style. It really is beautiful to look at, and you do think there's a lot of potential here. Like I haven't listened to the answers, but I'm guessing this could be expanded quite easily into a larger story, and maybe that's the goal. But only time will tell, and maybe the audience already knows all the answers to our questions.
Yeah, and I'm curious what other people think. Like, do you guys agree with us, or do you think this like just a home run and like all the quirkiness and all the oddness and weirdness is what it's about? It doesn't matter that things don't make sense, or would you also like a little bit more clear narrative thread in the beginning?
Shout out to Travis, though. Actually, and this may be biased, Augie, but I thought he was great. There was this one moment, I think it's his last moment on screen, where I was like, oh, Travis, there's something really there. Like, I think he's a solid actor.
No, he was very convincing. I thought they did a great job. Both of the brothers, I thought they were very convincing in the piece. And I mean, I didn't hate the lead's performance, but I felt like the other ones felt more natural. But I guess that's because the character isn't natural. It's like the character of Amos is a very uncomfortable, irritable, weird, neurotic character. So maybe I'm just focusing on that nervousness, which was intentional. I don't know, but the other characters just felt more like a part of the world in a way, Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, fun movie. I'm curious what people think. I like very dynamic, lots of locations. I think those are things I like in shorts, where it's like you're not just stuck in a room, you're not just stuck in one place. Like you get to see a lot of different stuff, and I think that's always fun. But Liz, I think I've got mail.
You have it.
My breath catches in my chest until I hear 3 little words. You got mail.
This week we have another listener email, this time from a new listener, Eamon Eels. Here's what they have to say. Hi, Liz and Ulrich. I just wanted to say that I just happened across your podcast this weekend, and I have been making shorts for only slightly longer. I cleaned out our man cave, not a euphemism, listening all the way back to your nervous first one, which was probably before the Industrial Revolution. In fact, my wife is probably equally pleased with your work, given the home improvement inertia prior to the podcast's zeitgeist had given this place the feel of a hoarder's social club. My own movie situation is probably hopeless. I have about 20 scripts and can't seem to stop like a nervous tick. I've converted 2 into shorts, which, let's be honest, but don't tell the cast, failed dismally. I feel a bit like the boy with his finger in a dike, but with someone shooting at me and a pack of wolves circling. Oh, and it's raining and I didn't bring a jacket. I don't want to subject you to any, as I think it must be hard work looking at everyone's movie favorite child and giving honest feedback, although would like a podcast on the most scathing feedback received. It would be fun only if the recipients didn't self-harm and didn't take up being an actuary. I do have some silly things on TikTok, and if you were in a protracted hostage situation with weird internet setup so you could only use TikTok and the only other person you could find was Justin Bieber, and if the alternative was looking at those featureless walls you see in torture scenes, honestly you would think someone would try and brighten them up a bit, and wait till the incessant drip makes you froth at the mouth, then it might serve as a momentary distraction. And then at the end, he says, hat for Fergustus 2.
That's their TikTok username. We gotta watch these at Fergustus 2.
Wow. So that was like a really bizarre email.
Oh, I love it so much.
Liz loved it. I laughed at, that, which was probably before the Industrial Revolution, referencing how old the podcast is, which is definitely true. It's been around for a long time. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think of this email, Liz, besides loving it?
First of all, you could just tell this guy's a writer. Because, I mean, look at this. Look at the illusion within an illusion within an illusion. It's fantastic. I would love to support Fergustus too. And though he seems a little nervous about sharing his content, I would love to support him in the way that he wants us to. So if he wants us to take a TikTok and talk about it, let's do it.
Yeah, just
however we can.
Send us one that you like, and then we'll watch it. Just one thing that you think best represents you, even if it represents you in a way that you think is terrible. Just whatever it is, send us that, and we'll talk about it. I mean, and it's funny they say shorts that failed dismally. What does that even mean? Like, what does a short failing mean? It's like, because most shorts don't really get that much attention, don't really get much more than a few film festivals. So to me, to ultimately fail, dismally with a short film is you get 5 views somehow, or you get into 0 film festivals if you apply to 20. But I don't think if you apply to 20 film festivals, you're probably going to get into at least 2 or 1.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
If you there's at least 20 top film festivals in the world. So
well, don't
if you're the top tier, your odds are going to be tough.
Well, don't. But again, it's the advice that even that's in your. I think you're in your short film that you made. Don't only submit to the big, festivals that you can't get into. Right. Submit to festivals that are appropriate for your movie, which is something that you can only learn after submitting to a few film festivals. But yeah, anyways, I'm sure your shorts are not as big a failure as you think they are. That's what I'm trying to say.
And, Eamon, you'll get to this. Since you're starting 6.5 years ago, you'll get to this episode eventually. But we did put ourselves on the chopping block and criticize each other's shorts. And I really actually derived a lot of utility from that episode. Where I think I don't remember if it was Ulrich or Atesh, but they were like, use less dancers and make them better. And I'm like, oh shit, I should have done that. Like there were all these moments where I was like, oh, you're so right. You're so right. And it was really edifying to hear what people thought could make something better. And I've been very wary of this segment, but it's nice to hear that Eamon is at least listening to us.
Yeah, totally. And I have to admit, I have not listened to my episode yet. You guys talking about my movie, so I don't know the good or the bad that was said.
Get ready. We're vicious.
Oh,
we're
yeah?
just,
You rip it apart?
We're so mean. Yeah.
Well, it was so funny because I saw a comment on the YouTube from our good friend, what's his name?
G-Ken?
Yeah, G-Ken, exactly. And he said,
Garrett Kennedy?
Yeah, he said how much he liked it. So I was like, oh, well, that's pretty great. And that made me feel good. So I guess maybe I don't know. I should listen, though, for sure. But yeah, anyways, another really big piece of awesome news about the alternate. We officially have our premiere. We are premiering at the Dances with Films Festival in Los Angeles on Saturday, September 11th at the midnight screening, which is super, super exciting. And we're playing with a movie called 010. And the filmmaker reached out to me and was like, hey, let's cross promote. Let's do this together. Let's get this movie, this screening to be the best it could possibly be. And his name is Graham High. So what's up, Graham? I told him I had a podcast. I don't think I gave him the link yet. But anyway, yeah, come see our films, man. It's going to be great. A lot of the cast and crew have already responded and they're coming. My actor, Ed, who lives in New York now, is going to fly out and come and see the movie in the Chinese theater. Because when he heard what theater it was playing at, he's never had a movie in a film festival before that he's been in. So this is super exciting. And he's the double lead in this movie. He plays the two main characters who are on screen for almost the whole movie. So this is going to be really fun. But yeah, tickets aren't available yet, but when they are, posted or whatever, I'll make it available on the website and social media and stuff so people can buy tickets. And I'm going to be in town for at least the weekend, if not longer. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to come for 4 or 5 days and really soak up the film festival experience, because they got a filmmakers lounge with free booze, and they've got panels and all these things they're doing, and it kind of feels like I'm remembering my first film festival days, back with my first short film. And it really is the best thing about a festival is going and meeting people and soaking up the whole experience. So I should just try to be at the festivals as much as I can. So I think I'm gonna try to make that happen.
I will be shooting my short that weekend, but I want to make an offer that I actually also made on behalf of Christine Weatherup, because her first feature is premiering, and she's, in addition to, I think it premiered at Woods Hole, but it's also playing Phoenix Film Festival, and I want to give away, raffle 2 tickets to your film that I'm happy to subsidize. I know it's not a huge effort, but I will buy 2 tickets and we'll do a giveaway to our listeners. So you and we can brainstorm about what people can do to get these tickets. Maybe they have to talk about something alternate related or something Ulrich related or something the podcast related. And maybe we'll do more than one of these. And we'll get listeners there.
Well, that's very generous of you, Liz. Thank you so much. I think that'd be a lot of fun for people to,
do ticket giveaways for your film.
Get some free tickets to the alternate premiere. It's going to be amazing. It's literally going to be the first time that it's shown on a big screen in its finished form, and probably the first time it's been shown at all in its finished form, besides me watching it at my house. Because we're gonna finish the movie on August 20th, and then the screening's on the 11th. So it's we're really cutting it close here, people. But yeah, it's really exciting, and we've got some of the sound design and the music mix kind of in progress right now, and getting those pieces in really changed the movie in a big way. And so it's really exciting to hear how it's evolving. Colors going in next week. I'm doing the titles now. It's all coming together. So
it's real.
It's real. And We also have a few other online film festivals that we got into that are coming up later down the line, but I'll save those announcements for a later date. And yeah, fingers crossed that we'll be playing in some other big festivals too coming up, because we're just waiting to hear back.
So stay tuned for more information about the alternate and also our ticket giveaway, because we want y'all to come support Ulrich. And if my short gets moved, I'll try to be there too, of course. If you want to be like Aim and Eels, you can send us a question, comment, or suggestion to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. If you like the show, you can leave us a review on iTunes or any of the places you can leave reviews for podcasts. We should just scrap that sentence because I think it's just iTunes. You can also go to our YouTube page. We are growing steadily. Leave a comment, question, see what we look like when we say silly things. And lastly, you can support the show on Patreon, www.patreon.com/MMIH podcast. Give whatever you can. We do not pocket any of the money. It all goes towards the actual making of the show, all through editorial expenses. So thank you so much. Finally, check us out. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at MMIH Podcast. YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast. And take it away, Ulrich.
So everyone, thanks for listening, and thanks to Brett and Drew for coming on the show again. We appreciate it, guys, and just being, I know they're going to be really honest and open about things, so thank you in advance for your honesty. You can also check out our website at makingmoviesishard.com, where eventually this episode will be posted, not yet. And thanks to editor Cameron for doing the editing. I haven't asked him yet, but I'm assuming he's going to do it. And if not, I'll do it. But thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.